Welcome, everybody, once again to the SoCal Car Scene Podcast, the exclusive place for coverage of car culture in Southern California and the personalities that drive it. I'm your co-host, Big J Marash, and also the technical director and producer of this show. Before we get started, just letting you know that this show is sponsored by SoCal Classic Car Storage and C-Tech Battery Chargers. Today, we have on the show Peter Nam, the CEO of Gunther Werks and Vorsteiner. And please make sure that you subscribe to this channel to continue to see all the great videos from our awesome guests like Peter Nam. And now over to our host, Father Dean Marash. Father Dean.
Father Dean, that makes me sound like I'm part of the cleric or something.
You sound so holy, Father Dean.
Bless you, Jason. Thank you, my son. Hey, thanks, Jay. And welcome, everybody, to the SoCal Car Scene. We're honored today to have as our guest Peter Nam. Peter graduated from Boston University with a degree in finance and specialized study in marketing and technology from UCI right down the street. He worked at a marketing agency where he helped clients grow their brand and businesses before following his automotive passion and starting Vorsteiner in 2003. For the last 17 years, Vorsteiner has been creating premium carbon fiber parts and wheels for the most passionate of car enthusiasts. Building upon the success of Vorsteiner, Peter decided to follow a lifelong dream of creating his own car, culminating in Gunther Werks, where he could push automotive design to new heights. Peter, thanks for joining us on the SoCal Car Scene.
Thanks for having me, guys.
It's our pleasure, man. So, hey, maybe we start with the company that you've been the CEO of for some time now, Vorsteiner. You've been making high-quality body kits and wheels for exotic and European cars for a number of years. What was the origin of that company? And did you start with Porsches? Give us a little background there.
It actually started with BMW. So I had to sell my E46 M3 back then. It was around $30,000, and that was essentially the seed money that I used to start the company.
Love it.
Yeah. So, I started off with one employee who was a carbon fiber technician that used to work at Boeing, and just started growing from there and started adding more people over the years. And now we're about 17 years in the business.
Incredible. What a story. We'll talk a little bit more about aerospace in a minute because I've got some background there myself. But so who do you blame or who do you credit for your automobile passion when you were young? Who was this individual or individuals that were so influential that, helped you create this great career in cars?
I don't think it was anyone individually. I was always passionate about cars, ever since I was a baby.
Right.
My father's not really into cars, so it wasn't him. I think the first time I really, really started falling in love with cars is watching the show Knight Rider.
Knight Rider, nice. Jay, did you ever watch Knight Rider? Is that's not Gen X appropriate?
Well, I'm not Gen X, number one, and no, I'm a little bit too young to watch Knight Rider. But David Hasselhoff's cool.
Well, that car was unique in that it spoke and that it looked like computers and lights and all kinds of stuff going on. Peter, so there was a fascination from shows like that, right, where cars were everything to a young man like yourself, right?
Yeah, it was, if you look at the show now, the artificial intelligence looks very, very hokey, but back then it was like so ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I was mesmerized by a talking computer car, so obviously these days we have those already.
They weren't self-driving though on that show. I guess they didn't fully anticipate everything.
Yeah,
autonomous.
Yeah.
Incredible. Hey, so one of the things I'm really curious about, we've got a number of Porsches and in our SoCal Classic Car Storage facility here, but what is this infatuation, addiction, whatever you want to call it, the car enthusiasts have with 80s and 90s Porsches? Did the engineers and the executives at Porsche know something that other car companies didn't during that time? Well, give us your insight.
I think the Porsche 911 was very ahead of its time. Even back then, it was punching way above its weight class, and it was on par with the performance of a Ferrari or a Lamborghini back then. And it has that German engineering where everything is very reliable and you can daily drive the car every day without a lot of fuss. I think the fascination of these air-cooled, Porsches today is really because of how analog and, how the air-cooled engine sounds compared to the water-cooled engines. It's really just a driver's car. There's you and the car, and there's nothing in between, no computers and gadgets and any controls that are in between, disrupting that connection between you and the car.
Just super visceral. It basically picks or tweaks all your senses. So one thing I didn't fully understand is you talk about the noise of an air-cooled versus a water-cooled engine. Is that kind of that line? What happens when you water-cool an engine that changes the noise of an engine?
Well, you don't have that air-cooled fan. That fan is really what that noise. And also you have a lot less technology gimmicks that are basically diluting that engine noise on the water-cooled. So I think a big part of that comes from the fan.
Well, one of the things that I find is really weird, every time I open up a Porsche, and I didn't grow up on Porsches, I fell in love with them when I moved to Southern California after I graduated college, was the performance in such a small package, and almost a package that looks vertical when you pop the hood versus, the width of a V8 or even a V6 sitting in an American car. The amount of size that these engines take up and the performance they get out of them seems like that's part of the magic. We can have this tiny little short car with all this power packed in a small package.
Yeah, it's definitely very, very compact back there.
Yeah. Jason, you've fallen in love with some of the cars we've got around here. I like that 930 slant nose, the RS America, that Turbo 964 here that we store for our customers. Jay, which one's your favorite?
I think the 964, to be honest with you. It's a really nice feel to that car.
Yeah.
Just the driver position and how that car really looks and feels, and it's a complete car.
So, well, why are they, when we sit in these cars, when we move them around here, one of the things we notice too, Peter, is that you're always in the right spot. When you sit in it, where the shifter is, where the pedals are, where the steering wheel is, where the instrumentation is, it seems like Porsche, again, was way ahead of the curve on the ergonomics of performance driving. But maybe not. It just feels that way when I jump into one of these Porsches.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. The cockpit is really designed around the driver. The positioning, the steering wheel, the shifter, where the dashes are, and everything is ergonomic. Even if you compare it to a modern car today, I can name modern cars today that are designed based on aesthetics, and ergonomics are absolutely terrible. You can't see out of the front windshield. You don't know where your front bumper is. I think Porsche has really mastered the art of ergonomics and driving position for these cars.
That's a great point you make. I've rented Camaros in the past, 5 years or so, and that's one of the things I can't see out of the back window of a Camaro. And when we move around some of these C3 Corvettes, you have no idea where the front of that car is. It's interesting. So it seems like they've thought of everything. So the engineers and the designers must have been working really well back in the 80s when a lot of companies, were just trying to mass produce and probably meet some EPA requirement and, just get through the day.
Yeah, I would agree.
So any other thoughts about why air-cooled cars are so collectible and why ultimately they become the canvas for not only collectibles, but this aftermarket and outlaw builds? And, it just seems like they're, understand we'll talk a little bit more about what you're doing at Gunther Werks with the 993, but, why does everybody gravitate towards them? Is it kind of what we've been talking about already, or is there something so unique and special and limited about them that, everybody wants one?
I mean, we touched upon the exhaust sound and the analog driving feel of the car, which is really going away today in modern cars. Cars are becoming more and more computerized, and you're really losing the connection of driver to car. Feels like the car is driving itself almost by, via computer. The other thing is the air-cooled Porsches were actually the perfect size. So you get into a modern car today, it feels like a boat compared to an air-cooled 911. So I think the size of the 911s up to the 993 were really the perfect size. Then they started getting a little bit bigger and growing every generation. So I think size is one thing, which leads to weight, because the bigger the car, the heavier the car is. And it had that perfect size to weight proportion and the perfect ergonomics and the sound, all that combined with the fact that Porsche has really got like a sort of religious following to the brand. Unlike any other manufacturer, people are religious believers of Porsche, so you don't see that with other brands such as BMW or Mercedes. You don't see people that are that passionate about the brand. And I think Porsche has done a very good job creating not just modern cars, but constantly marketing the history of the Porsche brand and the older cars and providing support for the older cars. And that's one of the things they've done better than any manufacturer in the world.
Yeah, it's a great point. We see we've got a lot of Porsche customers here. And one thing we notice is they're not only active in enjoying their cars and driving their cars, even when they're investment grade, like some of the ones we mentioned, but they like to track their cars. They're going to, the racetrack and pushing their cars and finding their personal limits with their own cars. Or they're going to the Porsche Experience Center, which I've been to, which is amazing. So it's rare that people that have performance-oriented cars are learning how to become better drivers in them. And I think Porsche has done a really good job of supporting that.
Yes, I would definitely agree with that.
Jason, one thing that we need to always worry about around here is keeping these Porsche batteries alive so that these cars are ready to go. And I think I know who you'd recommend to make sure that these Porsches are always ready to start right up.
Yeah, that's true. Making sure our Porsches start up is a big deal around there, because sometimes those batteries dies. It's hard to get them going again. But fortunately, we have our sponsor, which is C-Tech. Those guys and their battery chargers really help us out, keeping our Porsches and our other vehicles in the shop, for that matter, driving and reliable. And so that's why they are today's sponsor. And if you're looking for a smarter way to charge your car's battery, our friends at C-Tech lead the way in the care and maintenance of vehicle batteries. C-Tech's unparalleled knowledge and continuous investment in innovation means they offer high-quality, reliable chargers that are effective, easy to use, and most importantly, safe for the user and their car's electric system. The quality of C-Tech's products make them the trusted company of the world's most recognizable car brands, including Audi, Bentley, BMW, Corvette, Ford, Ferrari, Maserati, Mercedes, Porsche, and numerous others. Get yours today at smartercharger.com.
Yeah, their stuff is great. They've saved our day a number of times. So, Peter, you picked a platform, right? A Porsche. Was it specifically a 993 that kind of spurned this specific car that started your company at Gunther Werks? And I think you mentioned, I've talked to you and learned that there was something missing in the Porsche lineup, right?
Yeah, so we very, very intentionally picked the 993 because it's the last air-cooled 911, which is a very historical, monumental thing. And the 993 design speaks to me. It had much more of an aerodynamic shape compared to the 964. I heard that Porsche was actually supposed to put the water-cooled engine into the 993, and they had made all these aerodynamic revisions and suspension revisions to the car. It has the first car with multi-link rear suspension. And something happened financially at Porsche where they decided to stick back the air-cooled engine in the car. So it was essentially an air-cooled engine with all the modern suspension and aerodynamic updates that Porsche did. So,
Yeah.
by a lot of Porsche enthusiasts, the 993 is considered to be the most beautiful 911 made today.
Yeah, we've seen those 993s in our shop a couple of times now. And the one thing is, it seems like there's a lot of people that speculate on those, and people, they've become so valuable. Sometimes people are afraid to enjoy them. But what a beautiful design! I mean, to me, what's unique is just the smallness and the perfect dimensions of the headlights. I don't know, the front of that car is rather unique for its time period. And then the 964 is the next one, and a lot changed, right?
Well, the 964 is before the 993. It's the previous generation.
Right.
And at the time, they had that sort of more upright headlight design. You could
Upright.
what call the torpedo headlight design.
Mm-hmm.
It's very classic Porsche looking, but the 993, the aerodynamics designers actually brought the headlight back to make it more aerodynamic and the airflow above the headlights faster. So that was kind of the first time Porsche sort of moved the headlight design back, and you can see even like up to the current 992, the headlight design and shape has sort of retained that sort of styling that was really started on the 993.
So then you start off with this platform, the 993, and then what else did you think you needed to do what was not done from Porsche out of the factory? There were some other things that you really wanted to add to this platform. That was it performance? Was it, tell us about the inspiration? Was it the GT3 that was element that was missing from it?
Yeah, I think that from a historic standpoint, I'm a big fan of GT cars. That's where my passion is. And the GT car that started on the 993 was the GT2, which was a turbocharged car. They never, for some reason, Porsche had never made a GT3. The GT3 really started on the 996 platform, which was the first water-cooled engine car. So the idea sort of came where, what if Porsche had made an air-cooled 911 GT3 or GT3 RS? What would the car be like? And that was really the sort of genesis behind my idea of taking the 993 and going back in a time machine and saying, if Stuttgart had made a GT3 or GT3 RS, this is how we would imagine it would look like. That was really the genesis behind the whole idea.
The examples that you show on your website are quite incredible. I mean, where did you get the inspiration from, or how did that like kind of happen? Do you got like a story? Do you have like an aha moment?
I've honestly wanted to build my own car ever since I was probably 5 years old, and so that was always my lifelong dream. And I thought the 993 was really the perfect platform to build it upon, because from a base standpoint, the 993 was so well engineered, the perfect size, still air-cooled, has all that analog driving feel. It's kind of been in my head, and manufacturing parts, carbon fiber, and wheels for the last 17 years at Borsteiner has really sort of given me the experience and the technical know-how to build my own car. So I really learned a lot from Borsteiner. The technology I took and experienced in that has been transferred over to Gunther Werks.
I mean, how did that necessarily translate into a business for you?
It started off as me building a car for myself or for my sons. I have 3 young sons, and I'm scared that they're going to grow up never being able to drive a manual transmission, because everything is going to be autonomous driving, and just basically press a location on the map and the car drives.
Right.
So you're big on save the manuals then, huh?
Very big manuals, because it's an art form. I feel like it's my responsibility as one of the last generation of people that had manual cars around to sort of, extend that and be able to understand and enjoy it, have the opportunity to really get involved with driving manual cars again.
Yeah, Dad, I'm really grateful that you showed me how to drive manual cars around here just to really get that experience. Before I started working for you 2 years ago, I had no idea how to drive a manual car. And now I have like a great appreciation for them. And it's I think, it's just one of those experiences. It's kind of like reading a paper book, it feels real. It feels tangible. It doesn't feel fake.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we've noticed here, because we've got 100 cars under management, Peter, any given time between a couple of buildings, all these manual transmissions and the clutches have their own personality. Each car, when you have a manual transmission, seems to develop a personality. And I've been in the same model Porsche and same year, and it feels totally different. It's amazing.
Yeah, I would agree. Every car has their own quirks and advantages. So you don't really get that with an automatic transmission. You don't really see the personality of the car come through. Manual is a gateway to basically showing the personality of the car and the way it drives.
Yeah.
So you decide you're going to go from building a car or two for you and your sons, and then you decide to go kind of bespoke and produce cars and start the company, which is awesome. And you settled in on what, 25 of these R400s? Is that correct?
Yeah. So the first generation of these coupes, the naturally aspirated coupes, we're only making 25. One of the reasons is, we have a factory here in Huntington Beach, and we can only produce one car at the most per month. So that's really 12 cars a year. So we can't really produce 50 to 100 cars because of the sheer production capacity and the amount of, labor and hands that are involved. The other thing is we wanted to keep our first car very, very exclusive. So we're stopping at 25 and not one more.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
A true bespoke model, if you will.
Is there any legal nightmares that you had to jump over to get these cars produced at all, or? Because I know that we had Superformance on there. They were talking about, well, man, it's hard to get these cars built.
Yeah, that was I think for him it was mostly getting the VINs authorized.
Yeah, we have been in communication with Porsche AG in Germany, and let's just say we have a friendly working agreement with Porsche AG directly. So we have everything on the up and up with Porsche.
Great. Hey, want to touch a little bit on your factory. By the way, Jason's your neighbor down there in Huntington Beach. So, Jay, you got to stop by and see how real work looks, because we don't do much real work. But.
There's not much real work going on in HB. So, power to you for keeping things productive over there in Huntington Beach. Lord knows we need the whip over there.
And Peter, you guys aren't tempted to start making surfboards or anything?
Actually, my next door neighbor, they're a surfboard manufacturer. Right? So.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, man. It's a great place for a lot of stuff. There's surprisingly a lot of manufacturing in Huntington Beach. I spent a lot of years in aerospace in the 80s and 90s, involved in the design and fabrication of carbon fiber, Kevlar parts for Northrop, planes like the B-2 and the F-18. That was kind of my area of expertise. I too was dreaming of like, man, I want to make Sea-Doos. I want to start a vehicle company, but I think my passion was something in the water with all of these cool exotic materials at the time, because in the 80s and even into the early 90s, none of this stuff was making its way onto cars too much because they think it was just too expensive, or maybe the technology hasn't transferred. How transformative are these materials and the design and fabrication of the Porsche that you're producing at Gunther Werks?
Yeah, we've been using a lot of new technology such as 3D printing and rapid prototyping and CNC machining, using laser scanners to design our parts in CAD. So that has helped us speed up a lot of the development and accuracy of the product. We've been manufacturing carbon fiber for the last 18, 20 years. So I've got, a long history and background in carbon fiber, and we're really using sort of Formula One aerospace technology, applying it.
Yeah, I didn't think, but you're right. I mean, Formula One is, I got to imagine those cars have very little metal in them, maybe what, in the frame and in the suspension. But I hadn't thought about that so much. But aerospace, when you mentioned you started your other company with, or with Gunther Werks with an aerospace person, it makes tremendous sense, the synergies between those two industries.
Yeah, composite technology has come a long way, and it's now somewhat affordable to be able to use, materials like carbon fiber and Kevlar in the automotive space, as opposed to 20, 30 years ago, it was just far too expensive.
Right. Yeah, it was prohibitive. We had a Lamborghini in here for a while. Our customer sold it as Perfumani. But he was showing me that they use chopped fiber now in the spoiler and some of the other parts on the car. And I asked him why, and I think he said it was lighter, but it was also you can really customize the load carrying capabilities by using this chopped fiber approach. It looks weird. It looks like a bad paint job, like a typical graphite part or a Kevlar part on an exotic car. It looks so awesome. But then you see this, like, what the hell is that? But I guess is that the next wave of what we're going to see?
Well, I don't want to get in trouble with Lamborghini because I love Lamborghinis and I don't want to get blacklisted by Lamborghini here.
Don't do
it. To give you some factual information, and this information is publicly available on YouTube or on the internet, but what Lamborghini calls forged carbon is inferior in weight and strength to traditional weaved carbon fiber.
Okay, it's not as strong. Okay, makes sense. I was looking at it going, well, how do you replace the fiber, the strength of fiber,
It's inferior because, from a performance level, because you want molecules to align in a certain way. And when you have random fibers going in every direction, you have molecules that are not aligned. And that creates weaknesses and voids in the actual carbon fiber. The only reason why Lamborghini did this is actually a technology. Forged carbon is a technology. So Boeing used this carbon fiber technology because they wanted to be able to mass produce carbon fiber very quickly and cost effectively instead of the weave carbon fiber where you would have to lay it by hand, and it's a very, very time consuming process. And Boeing, from what I heard, decided not to use forged carbon on any of the structural components of the airplane, which is critical. They actually used it for, food trays or actually the toilets inside an airplane. So they decided, hey, why don't we just, since we're not using this technology for structural components, which is a majority of the plane, they decided to partner up with Lamborghini and sort of sell the technology to Lamborghini.
I did not know that. Boeing sold it to Lamborghini. Wow.
So Lamborghini used this technology because it was a way for them to quickly mass produce carbon fiber components on these cars. And if you notice, Lamborghini generally uses forged carbon only for interior components. It's not so used on exterior components. The Performante is one of the first cars that has forged carbon on the exterior components, like the wing.
Yeah, it's the first time I've seen it, but I'm not an expert on all these exotics either.
It's a form. It's done because of mass production. It's very producing. You can produce it literally 5 to 7 times faster than a hand-laid carbon fiber. But if you look at all their halo cars like the Aventador, SVJ, and so forth, notice the carbon fiber is all traditional weaved carbon fiber because it has better performance.
Gotcha. Okay. Wow. Well, it just shows you that these technologies are ever changing, and so there's this trade-off, right, between performance, cost, and time to produce, and I'm sure everybody's got to make those trades. Depends on their business, right? But in your case, you're delivering a very high performance vehicle, very bespoke, personalized, personally built, handcrafted. Is it fair to say these are handcrafted vehicles? They're not even limited production, right?
Our cars are only 25 limited production, and they are pretty much all handmade. So there's about 5,000 to 6,000 man hours that go into each one of these builds.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Jason, we need to get one of these incredible cars that Peter's building stored down here because it would fit right in and it would be a great place to showcase it, right, Jason?
Oh, really? Yeah, totally. And it can join all the other cool cars here at SoCal Classic Car Storage, which the show is also sponsored by, which is technically us. So we're going to do some free advertising because it is our podcast. So just letting you know that this podcast is brought to you by the lovely people, Dean and I, at SoCal Classic Car Storage. Our facilities here in the lovely city of Laguna Hills offer private and secure white glove vehicle storage and extensive concierge services. In addition to storage, our expert sales staff offers consignment services for those looking to sell their cars. For more information, visit us in Laguna Hills or at SoCalCarStorage.com or on Facebook at Facebook.com/SoCalCarStorage.
I hate to leave that topic, Peter, because I can get all geeked up on this composite stuff and all the high tech and the 3D printing and so on and so forth. We've got some customers down here that are actually doing some backyard builds that are using some of this technology themselves in their garage. It's amazing that 3D printing and some of the technology you talked about allows people to make modifications to existing cars. So I could get really geeked out on that stuff, but anyway, then I'd have to show my ignorance because there's so much to know, and each one of us knows so little. But thanks for sharing that with us. So we've spent a lot of time with a lot of our guests in the last 4 to 5 months talking about shows and the ups and downs of car shows through the COVID-19 crisis. And it's been devastating for a lot of companies. And we've had Factory 5 CEO on here. We've had a number of people that run the car shows, like the one down in South Coast Orange County, which is over 1,000. And then, of course, we've had, so many guests, like Wade Kawasaki, from his incredible company, Coker Tires. He's on the SEMA board. And so everything, that company that he also manages owns a great race. So that got shut down. But he also has given us an opening and saying, hey, SEMA is still possible. We're doing everything we can to make it COVID compliant. We're in the process of planning for that show. Of course, nobody knows what's going to happen. But long story short, how important is SEMA to Borsteiner when you roll out products into the public or shows like SEMA as an integral part of your marketing and sales?
We've done SEMA for, I think, 4 to 5 years, and it's been a great show for us. But with everything going to digital right now, and you heard the news about the Geneva Auto Show being canceled next year as well. I think a lot of brands are sort of transferring their marketing from physical car shows into virtual digital releases, and that's sort of, I see the COVID-19 has sort of accelerated that transfer, in my opinion, and a lot of manufacturers and brands are realizing that doing it digitally can be almost just as impactful and create a good ROI. So I think the shows are still physically important. People still want to physically touch and see a car or a product, but I think we're going to see a large growth in shows just becoming virtual.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that too. We had Muffy Bennett on here, and they run a couple of auctions, the Lake and the Ritchie auctions, and they've gone completely digital on one of the Ritchie auctions, and a lot of these other auction companies have had great success. I think Jason knows the data as well as I. So, one of our interesting topics is always, is this the new future where it's like you said, accelerated into digital? Or will we go back to the way it was? Or has the landscape changed forever and we're more ready for this, I hate to say, pandemic type environment that we live in. I mean, I think one word you used, which is more of an acronym that rings a bell to me, is ROI. The ROI on digital is tremendous if it can produce the same results, say, of a physical show.
Yeah, I agree. The ROI is, can be much better than going to a physical show. There are some things that can't be replaced digitally, like, eating food. You can't digitally eat food. You have to go to a restaurant to physically eat the food.
Right.
But there are certain products that don't necessarily require the need for someone to physically travel to a certain location to look at a product anymore. Before, these were the only means for someone to actually release products and look at new products. But, with the newer generation, they're so used to seeing things digitally now. I think the current generation is really going to sort of dictate how important and, critical having physical shows are. Guys like me, we're older, so we still like reading books and going to car shows, but I'm not quite sure the future generation feels that strongly about it.
Hey, Jason, why don't you comment here? That's a great perspective. Now, Peter's fortunate enough not to be as old as I am. I feel the same way he is. I love the physical aspect of going to shows, but I'm somewhat comfortable online. Jay, what's your perspective?
Well, you don't want to know my perspective. I'm not enthusiastic. I've never been enthusiastic about car shows to begin with, so I'm just gonna say, who cares? But but at the same time, I can see like the physical nature of it. It's fun. It's a good thing to go. It just allows us to rally around, cars and everything like that. And, there's something to be said about realness, something about actually looking and, pretending that you get to touch all these nice cars. So, I don't know. I think that my generation is not as interested, and Gen Z is probably going to be less interested in going to a physical car show, because it's like I can look at all the car porn on the internet however much as I want to. So, why do I need to go to a show?
That's a good point. Yeah, and I think, like you said, each generation gets less and less interested physically and more comfortable purchasing, experiencing. So, that's great. So, who are the people in the company or the people that you outsource to, Peter, that enable that? Are they the photographers and the folks that are creating videos and creating compelling, captivating content? Are those the people that are going to have tremendous influence going forward as we evolve into this more virtual, digital marketing and selling environment?
Yeah, that's already happening. You see all these YouTube reviewers. They're making a living just reviewing cars on the internet with their phone. So it's even affected, the journalist market. So I think digital influencers are going to have tremendous power moving forward, and that's why you have this whole movement, with social media, with influencers that are actually influencing customers to buy products digitally 100%. So it's going to be a big driving factor of new product sales.
Yeah, we kind of feel the same way. And, Jason will always tease me. I'm on the steep part of the learning curve, and I may never flatten out on that curve, by the way. But it's so important to be fluent. If not you, then the people that work in your organization. Otherwise, you're, even if you got a little bit of brick and mortar in your business, like your manufacturing, you can't afford to stick with the past. And, Moore's Law is at work on so many of these technologies. I just listened to what you said about how you manufacture a car, and many people are, maybe they're 5 years ago and how to build high-tech products, and maybe they've never done any 3D printing, for example. Now you can't rapid prototype. You can't afford to get there and compete if you can't rapid prototype with things like 3D printing, right? I mean, it just, how do you compete if you don't understand and know how to leverage the technology? So I want to change subjects a little bit. How do we, we have an RS America here, really amazing little car. And, I've done a little bit of research about it because when it came in, I'm like, I don't know what's all the rage, so I had to do a little bit of research. And I guess Porsche took out about 350 pounds or thereabouts. I may have the number wrong. But compared to the standard, is it a 964 that's based on? 350 pounds for a small car that doesn't weigh a lot, that's pretty significant, isn't it? And so is it weight savings with your design and your Gunther Werks? Is it performance? Is it aesthetics? Is it all of the above that really make these cars that you're building so special?
Yeah, our primary focus is performance. So we're taking sort of the same GT performance, GT3, GT3 RS performance sort of, concept, and we're looking at power to weight, and aesthetics really come last for us. So
okay, power to weight.
What I wanted to do was try and lose as much weight on this car as possible. And that is the reason why we made everything out of carbon fiber. The car's gone and done about a 500 to 600 pound diet.
Wow.
Stock 993. And it's not just about adding power. Anyone can stick a large motor or stick turbochargers in an engine and get more power. It's about weight, because weight not only improves the performance, but it improves the driving characteristics of the car. You can have a very, very fast car that goes down a straight line, but as soon as you go on a corner, you start feeling the weight of the car. So that's critical to the philosophy of our car. Is everything is based on power to weight, and our power to weight ratio is actually better than a 991 GT3 RS. So we're quite proud of that.
That's impressive. So what's the power to weight ratio in the Gunther Werks vehicle?
So we have, the car weighs just under 2,600 pounds, and we're producing a little over 430 horsepower. So if you do the math, it's a significant number. There's very few cars naturally aspirated that have the kind of power to weight ratio that we can achieve in our car.
So I'm glad you brought up natural aspiration. Now, again, I'm guessing that you stuck with a natural aspiration approach as opposed to a turbocharger or some kind of boost because of the responsiveness of that or the sound. Tell us about that. Is there a big weight penalty from turbocharging? Why did you decide not to go there, for example?
I just love naturally aspirated cars. That's my love for GT3s and GT3 RSs. There's something so magical about a naturally aspirated engine compared to a forced induction. The sound of it, the feel of it, and the raw, visceral character of a naturally aspirated engine, you just cannot replace that with forced induction. So that's one of the reasons why. And, the 993 already had a turbocharged GT2. So what it was really missing, in my opinion, was a naturally aspirated version of a 993 that performs like a GT car. So that was the reason we started off with a naturally aspirated engine.
Makes complete sense. So tell us about the folks that build that engine for you. I'm not familiar with Ross Sport, but obviously they're a big name out there. Why them, and what do they bring that makes them such a great partner of yours in this incredible build?
So I went to Jeff a little over 3 years ago and showed up at his doorstep in Portland, Oregon. And I said, Jeff, I have this idea of building this 993 like GT3 RS like type car, and I heard you have the best engine in the business. So he thought I was crazy. Thank gosh he took me seriously. And we put the engine in the car, and it's just been magical. One of the most favorable comments we get about our car is really the engine. All the reviewers that drove our car, they say the engine is magical. So it's thanks to Jeff Gamroth. The really good thing about Jeff is he not only builds these engines, but he actually races them. So it's different for someone just to be an engineer and theoretically go, oh, if we made the engine like this, it would drive better or feel better. Jeff actually can experience it. So he's not just like someone that will make the engine based on, paper, schematics. He tests the engine and he knows all the strengths and weaknesses of the engine. And so that gives him a really special edge over all the other engine builders.
Yeah, I got to imagine the race experience, race engine building experience plays into a lot of that too. And that's where, companies do their best work, right? When they can draw from that team or that part of the company where, the racing developments influence production.
Mm-hmm. Right. It's directly related with him. It's all done under one roof. And usually you have 2 or 3 people that are, talking to each other within different departments to design and build an engine. Jeff is essentially like 3 departments in one because he can experience and test the engines himself because he's a great driver.
And where are these engines manufactured? Are they here in SoCal, or where do they make the engines?
They are actually made at Jeff's factory, Rossport Racing, in Portland, Oregon.
Portland. Awesome. Well, I'm so glad they're on the West Coast. That is really a great story. I didn't know much about the Rossport engine manufacturing, so it's really great to learn. Hey, one of the things that I've seen online, and I got a real chuckle out of it, like, I wonder what it's like for these reviewers to go get in your car. So I found this one video, and I don't even remember the reviewer's name, but a young guy gets in there, and he's on Canyon Road, he's testing your car. He's smiling the whole time. He's laughing like a schoolboy. I'm like, you just like, look at the silhouette of this car. I just can't believe it. I'm like, is there just this incredible reaction the first time people get a chance to drive one of your cars?
Yeah, well, a lot of our customers, when they drive it, like, for example, first time on a track, they get out and they have a giant smile on their face and they say, wow, it's like sensory overload. Sensory overload. You feel everything on this car. I mean, if you run over a rabbit, it's got so much feedback, you will know whether the rabbit is male or female and what for lunch.
Wow. Well, what a great, it's just amazing what you've done with, evolving your career from building, these high quality body kits and wheels and aftermarket products, and then leveraging that experience and then capitalizing on that to pursue your own dream, which is every kid's dream, right? Building your own car. And then it goes from building a couple to doing what you're doing. It's quite a story. I think everybody's got to be just like so envious. Like, this is really the car dream. I know the hard work isn't the dream, but that's the car dream right there.
Yeah, it's the Southern California dream, I guess. We live in the mecca of car builders over here with Pasadena Art School, and a lot of car design studios and manufacturers here are based out of Southern California. So we are at the mecca of all of this in the world.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's easy to lose sight of that, right? But it is the mecca, that Pasadena design studio. The guy that does my website, Kyle, he's a graduate of that, and he's like, Dean, you got to go. They have an annual show or an event where you get to go in there, and he says, next time I'm down there, we're going to go. And I'm like, I can't wait. But, it's easy to take for granted that we're in such a special car place.
Right, and the weather is not too bad either.
And one thing I want to touch on before we wrap here in a few minutes, understand that folks, when they order a 400, is it a 400R?
So we don't call it the 400R for legal reasons. We are calling it the Porsche 993 remastered by Gunther Werks. I'm sorry.
Okay. So when they ordered this car, folks can and oftentimes do bring in their donor 993. And on top of that, they can personalize it, right? So tell me about the customer experience when, they say, hey, here's the 993 I want to bring in, and what can I pick, when it comes to paint and interior and suspension. And, it just sounds like a kid in the candy store kind of environment. it's prohibitive for some, but for those that have that opportunity, tell us about the customer experience.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, for example, buying a suit. Okay, so if you buy a suit that's sort of pre-made, you walk into Macy's or Saks Fifth Avenue and you buy a nice Italian suit. The suit is somewhat 80% sort of fitted and sized up. And so you have to adjust the arms a little bit, adjust the shoulders, maybe tighten up the buttons or loosen them up. So you've got sort of that 85, 90% generic fit on the suit.
Right.
Our car is sort of like walking into a tailor, and they're literally measuring your body and designing a suit around your body. It's a custom tailor-made suit. So this isn't sort of a generic mass production car that you walk in, you choose a paint color, you choose a leather, and 80, 90% of the car looks almost like the other ones. I mean, there are so many different options that we have. We make the seat cushions based on the size of your body and your comfort level. And the suspension is designed around what kind of streets you drive in. So if you drive roads in LA where it's very bumpy and there's bad road clearance, we will adjust and design the suspension around that road condition that you drive in. It isn't
a big curve going up your driveway.
Yeah, we actually have a nose lift button on our car.
So you
button and
wow. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, that's great. I just can't imagine having the opportunity to have you build a car. It just sounds like a great experience for both you and your team and the customer. What's in the pipeline for Gunther Werks? Do you have another one on the board? Are you guys going to pause and say, wow, we need a timeout? Anything you can reveal at this point, or is it, are we a little premature for having that conversation?
Yeah, we already started teasing a preview of our Speedster. So it's based off the Porsche 993 again, but it's a full open-top experience, and it's going to be almost like driving a motorcycle, but you're in a car. So it's going to have the same visceral performance of our coupe, but the open-top California driving experience. So that's next on our pipeline, and we have essentially the next 10, 15 years of all the models pretty much already designated. So after the coupe, we're going to move into limited production runs of many different, derivatives of this car.
Wow, that's great. Well, we can't wait to see that Roadster, and we'll be really excited for you. I'm sure it's going to be a smashing success. Where do folks learn more about Gunther Werks and Vorsteiner on social media and out on the internet?
Yeah, so we have Instagram or Facebook. They can go to Gunther Werks or Vorsteiner, Vorsteiner, and also our website as well. So
great. Well, Peter, we can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's been interesting, exciting, thought-provoking, and we're super excited about your success. And thanks for the great ride today.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Well, great. You just heard Peter Nam. That finishes up episode number 27 of the SoCal Car Scene podcast. They still have us on the air, so we must be doing something right. And you can help keep us on the air by subscribing to this podcast. All you got to do is just hit that subscribe button below. Or if you're listening in audio land, just hit that subscribe button on the front page of this podcast. So for more episodes, you can find us all over the internet: YouTube, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, etc. So go ahead and listen to some past episodes and check us out. Also, you can follow us on our Instagram page at the SoCal Car Scene, and that handle at the SoCal Car Scene is also available on Facebook. Thank you so much again for stopping by, and from all of us here, happy driving.